There's an elephant in this room, literally sitting right next to me. He's speaking in Terry Crew's voice, and he's asking, loudly and in very angry terms, if I'm not entertained. And while I'll grant it's possible that lamb chop I ate a few hours ago was in fact spoiled, I'm not about to argue with this Terry Crew's elephant in my room. So to that end, here's the follow-up to my review on Saints Row 4, which is the game Crackdown 3 has to steal my attention from if it wants me to play more of it. Crackdown 3 from Microsoft Studios and Sumo Digital falls squarely into the same genre as Saints Row 4. They're cut to fit pretty much exactly the same hole, in fact, and if you watched my review of Saints Row 4, you'll know that's a good place to start. To be fair, that hole was first punched through the fabric of reality by the original Crackdown, so credit where credit is due. Crackdown is not copying Saints Row. That's very much the other way around. But how does Crackdown 3 measure up to the original anyway? Well, pretty good. The open-world mayhem-inducing gameplay is big, loud, and satisfying. In the single-player and co-op modes, it really is a party to just start blowing crap up and see how many AI foes you can explode before you get bored or overwhelmed. A lot of the appeal of a game like this is the open-world opportunity to kind of just set your own objectives, and the game is succeeding best when it allows you to pursue those objectives without undue resistance. Like being able to just walk away from a key story objective. Say I don't want to fight that boss right now. Say I'd much rather be throwing cars into the ocean. Crackdown 3 is just fine with that. I really like the skill progression in this game. Collecting agility orbs is a great way to force you to really become familiar with your movement controls, and having stuff like your strength and weapons skills tied to how often you use them is a very self-aware application of RPG mechanics that makes so much sense to me I can't fathom how this sort of thing hasn't been implemented in every RPG ever. Say I use bows constantly in Skyrim, like 90+% of my kills are with a bow. Is it fair to give me the option to stupidly put my experience toward hand-to-hand melee weapons every time I level up? I mean, sure, it's fair, it's my stupid decision. I'm just saying that these games could try at least a little to not point out my idiocy. I also appreciate they didn't really worry too much about the rewards for leveling up. For each level, in each skill, there is one improvement, and it's just handed to you every time. Pretty straightforward, and for a game that can be summed up as Hulk Smash, it's a system that seems nice and self-aware regarding the audience. You don't want to complicate something like this too much. So, good game. Worthy successor to the original Crackdown. But back to this elephant. Terry, please calm down, I'm getting there. Was I entertained? Yes. But only just exactly enough to boot up Saints Row 4 and start playing that again. And there's the rub. I wouldn't actually recommend Crackdown 3 to anyone on the strengths of its single-player or co-op campaign modes, because they're basically exactly the same as Saints Row 4, only slightly less good. The humor falls flat a lot of the time. The customization is limited. The characters aren't as endearing. The game world is slightly less distinct. The guns aren't as fun, the traversal superpowers aren't as fun, the music isn't as fun, and the number of teeny tiny cutscenes that happen every time you complete even the smallest objectives is frankly absurd. Nobody wants that many cutscenes, Crackdown. Or, well, nobody not playing a Kojima game wants that many cutscenes. Saints Row 4 isn't even more edgy than Crackdown 3, there's just as many F-bombs and off-color jokes in Crackdown, they just aren't delivered as well, you know? Saints Row 4 has this secret sauce that makes it weirder, funnier, more personable, and just all around more fun than Crackdown 3. What Crackdown 3 has that Saints Row 4 doesn't have, though, is genuine multiplayer. This is Microsoft's first real demonstration of their cloud is the future of gaming push, and the vast majority of the CPU-heavy real-time destruction which occurs in developer Elbow Rocket's Wrecking Zone is done by servers remote to your actual gaming platform of choice. So, is the multiplayer enough of a reason to buy this over something older and cheaper like Saints Row? Probably not. It's definitely an interesting concept, don't get me wrong, and the worldwide synchronized multiplayer destruction enabled by the cloud computing is an impressive technical achievement. But impressive technical achievement isn't how you sell a game, you sell it by making it fun. And there are a few things standing in the way of Wrecking Zone being the awesome thing it could be. First is the impressive technical achievement. While physics-based destruction of this nature isn't necessarily new for high-powered, many-cored PCs, this is a first for something like an Xbox, which basically runs on a low-tier AMD APU. But offloading all that processing power does add one other point of stress, the network load. My internet connection is pretty robust, but even I had issues with stuttering during the most destructive moments. Second is the game they tacked this onto. Crackdown 3's campaign did not impress me with its controls. There was a learning curve, and while I got used to them, I find them to be most frustrating during the fastest-paced parts of the game. That's usually not problematic when you're just wading through a sea of AI cannon fodder, but when you take that control methodology and put it into a PvP scenario, problematic was the least of my concerns, even after taking some time to get acclimated to how things worked. I think there's a lot of potential in the concept, but the way the game plays, it feels half-baked at the moment. Lastly, the self-perpetuating problem of any multiplayer online game that doesn't immediately get swamped by players: there aren't that many people online at any given time. Matchmaking takes a while, and frequently the teams aren't evenly stacked. These are all things that could be fixed by updates, no doubt, but at the moment, the Wrecking Zone is not a reason for me to recommend Crackdown 3 over Saints Row 4. So, there you go. That's my verdict. Buy Saints Row 4 instead. But before Terry here tramples me into a hot paste, I wanted to add a caveat to that. If you're already subscribed to Xbox Games Pass, then you absolutely should download Crackdown 3 and give it a play, because it is a fun game. Almost as good as the game it needed to beat to be worth full price, but guys, it just showed up in your library one day for free if you were already paying that subscription. Play it. There's no reason not to. And this is where game subscription services like this start to get a little weird. Netflix has gotten me to watch a lot of movies I never would have paid money to see. Apple Music has gotten me to listen to a lot of music I never would have bought myself. And now Games Pass is getting me to recommend playing games I never would have recommended you buy. Depending on your perspective, it's a new era or the beginning of the end. Now, if you'll excuse me...
Hulk smash!